Well, g'day. Welcome to the Love People Use Things podcast. My name is Matt Fradd. Or, since Noah Church made fun of my accent last week, why don't I try it this way? Hi. G'day. Oh, no, he doesn't say g'day. He's not bloody Australian. Hi, my name is Noah Church, and this is the Love People Use Things podcast. That's as good as it gets, mate. I can't do any more than that. Hey, if you're new to the show, Love People Use Things is a podcast on how to quit porn, or how to help you help people quit porn. And it's a show run by someone who's religious and someone who's not religious, which is kind of cool because you kind of get two different takes, although we agree on many things, we have to say. I'm a Christian, Noah isn't, Noah's not religious, but both Noah and I think that your life and my life would be better without porn, and that's what this podcast is all about. Last week's episode was really cool. It was called What It Means to Love. Here's what somebody said in the comments section on our YouTube channel. Just look up Matt Fradd on YouTube if you want to follow me there. But this person said, "This is probably the best and most wholesome video I have heard." And they went on. But that's cool. So good job, Noah. Last week, Noah, you were talking about, see, here I am talking to Noah through a podcast. So this is kind of weird. But Noah was saying that he loves the title of this podcast, which I came up with, a while back. Love People Use Things. I think often people associate that, that phrase with the minimalist podcast. But of course, they didn't invent it. Love People Use Things. It's pretty straightforward, but let me just say what it means. Karol Wojtyła was a Polish philosopher who became John Paul II. And in his book, Love and Responsibility, he said, the human person is a good towards which the only proper and adequate attitude is love. That's why I call it Love People Use Things. Because when we subordinate the good of another to the good of pleasure, we do violence to the human person, I think. Like, I get that we all use people for particular ends, and that we can't escape this. An employer uses, in a sense, his employees. My wife is using me for a family which she would like. I am using her for a family which I would like. We do use people, but but you can all. I guess we could distinguish between using people and merely using people. I think that's the distinction that needs to be made, because I think in pornography what you're doing is, subordinating the dignity of the other to the good of pleasure. Like, pleasure is a good, but to attain that good to the detriment of somebody isn't a good thing. And so that's why I call it the Love People Use Things podcast. One more thing I want to say before we get into today's episode. You might not know this or not, but a while back, I helped create an app called Victory, right? The Victory app. If you go to thevictoryapp.com, I'm going to go there right now to see if we've updated it. Thevictoryapp.com. There's my singing for you, so you don't get too bored while I look it up. Check it out, would you? It looks incredible and is incredible. I'm so proud of this app. As I say, we released it several years ago, and we've just blown it up and totally remade it, and it's amazing. It's so intuitive. It has a place for prayer requests. And if you're not a person of prayer, you can still use it, and that person will at least know that you need help, and they might call you. There's a calendar tracker where you can track your progress, talk about how you're doing in your fight against pornography. You have a user dashboard where you can see exactly where your journey to victory is at a glance. So it'll tell you how many setbacks and victories you had last month, how many setbacks and victories you've had this month. There's a daily check-in spot, so at any point during the day, you can just check in, and if you're not doing too well, you're an accountability partner, which is so awesome. This app links to your accountability partners. You can have as many as you want, I think. They get a notification on their phones. They know to reach out to you. We have resources like wisdom and a book that I wrote with Mark Hart that you can check out. It really is sensational. And guess what? It's completely free. Victory, it's called. Victory. If you want to go to thevictoryapp.com to check it out, an app is good when the creator of it, and I didn't kind of do the code or anything, but I helped Life 10, in thinking this through and getting the funds and putting it together. The fact that I use it is a pretty good sign that it's a good app. You know what I'm saying? It's not like just something we're trying to sell to people. It's something that we ourselves use. So I use it, and it's actually completely free. You don't get a lot of that these days. So be sure to check out the Victory app. It's super amazing. It's on Apple and Android. All right? Check that out. So today, I want to talk about something that I am deciding to do. I have decided to do. I've decided to quit the internet. Not forever, just for a month, which seems pretty crazy in this day and age. Since I was 16 years old, when was that? It was about 19 years ago. I've gone online almost every day. Like, I wonder how many days I haven't gone online since I was 16. Maybe 16? Like, I don't know. Maybe 20? Maybe 50 days? You know? I don't know, but it's not many. But starting next month, from August 2nd until September 2nd, I've decided to go completely offline. Even saying it scares me, actually. I kind of feel like it's official now that I'm telling people. What does that mean? Well, it means no email, no social media, no keyboards, no podcasts, no audiobooks, no YouTube, nothing. Not even a smartphone. I'm going to explain more about how that'll look in a moment. But first, let me offer a seeming digression. All right? Suppose you're at a party, and across the room you see someone you don't like. It doesn't matter why. They're boring, they speak too closely, all they talk is politics, whatever. Out of the corner of your eye, you notice them approaching. Now, if they were a long way off, you might be able to escape without seeming rude. But, bugger it, they're only a few feet away, and there's no escape. You turn to them, smile convincingly, and endure a few minutes of conversation before saying something about something you need to get done and that you're sorry to be rushing off so soon. All of this is to make this point. When you don't like someone, you tend to avoid them. All right, fair enough, huh? But what do you do when you're the one you don't like? Now, you may never have thought of this before, and that might seem rather crazy, but stay with me because I think there's a point to it. What do you do when you're the one you don't like? It's a little more difficult to get away from you. Now, why wouldn't you like you? Why don't I like me? Well, maybe you're irritable, anxious, moody, and just blah. How do you escape yourself? It's easier than you might think. The way you escape yourself is, and I know I've spoken about this before, so forgive me if this feels like I'm rehashing stuff I've spoken about. The way you escape yourself is by distracting yourself. You distract yourself from yourself in order to avoid yourself. You and I plunge ourselves headlong into a myriad of noisy and titillating things to avoid having to be alone with yourself, right? And myself. I do the same thing. It doesn't matter what it is, right? It could be YouTube, it could be crossword puzzles, it could be Pornhub, it could be social media, you name it. But it doesn't help, does it? Not really. Noise, which is essentially what all this amounts to, whether it's audible or not, is, in the words of Cardinal Seurat, a deceptive, addictive, and false tranquilizer. I like that. All this noise that we surround ourselves with to distract ourselves is a deceptive, addictive, and false tranquilizer. One of my favorite authors is Blaise Pascal. He was a 17th century Christian Frenchman. One of the things he said, and I'm paraphrasing, is that all of man's ills boil down to the fact that he doesn't know how to sit alone in a dark room silently. Isn't that powerful? Like, imagine just sitting alone in your room. How long can you do it for before you have to distract yourself? Now, again, I really do think this gets to pornography in a way that isn't immediately obvious, perhaps. Like, I think pornography is a very big distraction. It's a very big escape. That's how we escape ourselves, and it's a sort of forceful escape. It enables us to sort of transcend ourselves in a sense, and in a real sense, right? I mean, like, sexual pleasure is, in a sense, ecstatic. Like, it enables us to stand outside of ourselves in a way that mere YouTube videos can't do. And so there really is something to this. Again, when we turn to porn, we're turning to something to avoid ourselves because we don't like being. I really do think. I mean, maybe that sounds like nonsense to you, but I actually think it's spot on. It's true of me. It's true of the people that I speak to. So anyway, Cardinal Seurat says all this noise is a deceptive, addictive, and false tranquilizer. Listen to this. He says, the tragedy of our world is never better summed up than in the fury of senseless noise that stubbornly hates silence. Don't get me wrong, right? It feels good for a moment. But after that moment, are we at rest? I mean, let's just forget about porn for a second. All right, let's think about the other ways in which we distract ourselves. And by the way, a lot of these distractions that aren't pornographic can very often lead us to pornographic content, since they lead us to numb out. And when you're numbed out, you're not in a good place to resist and make good decisions. But, these distractions, they feel good in the moment. After the moment, are we at rest, peaceful, content? Think about it. After you've watched, and after I've watched 5.5 episodes of The Office, while texting and tweeting throughout, do we feel calm? I know I don't. And I suspect you don't either. It seems to me what much of the internet promises is leisure. And what it gives most of the time, is a state of near unresponsive stupor. And yes, I am very aware that one can lose himself in things not online. Obviously, I mean, our parents, it's not like our parents were like fully engaged and fully alive and they lived without the internet. So I'm not saying the internet is solely to blame here, but I suspect that for the majority of people today, that is where the numbing out happens. So that's the first thing, right? It separates us from ourselves. But from a Christian point of view, what's worse than that, and this noise, this distraction, this numbing out, what's worse than it distracting us from ourselves is I think that it distracts us from God. Cardinal, again, he's a Catholic cardinal, okay? So if you're not a Catholic, that's okay. Take this however you want to take it. But he says, if our interior cell phone is always busy because we are having conversation with other creatures, how can the Creator reach us? How can he cool us? Now, we might have some agnostic listeners who are open to the possibility of God's existence. And then that's a pretty good argument. If the only way for you to encounter God is for you to be present, then if you immerse yourself in a myriad of activities that see to it that you're not present, how can you expect God to reach out to us, to cool us, to meet us in the silence, Anyway, this is why I'm taking a break. Now, I personally, all right, I don't want to speak for you. I don't know what it's like for you, but I get sucked into this big black hole called the internet. All right? And it like, whatever it is, and it takes up a lot of my emotional bandwidth. And here's the thing, it doesn't just take it from nowhere and from nothing. It takes it from my family, right? From my interests, from my pursuits, from the things that I actually want to engage in, the things I find meaningful. So anyway, that's why I'm giving up the internet for August. Now, many of you have asked me questions about the practicals of all this. How do you plan on accomplishing this feat of strength? Which is funny because 20 years ago, this feat of strength was just called life. We didn't have the internet, or maybe 30. I don't know how long have we had the internet for. Gosh, yeah, I guess 20-something years. So anyway, here's some quick answers to some of the questions you might have. So you might be thinking, how will you let people know that who are trying to get a hold of you that you're not on the internet? Isn't that kind of irresponsible to be totally out of reach? Well, basically, starting from August 2nd, I'm going to change my voicemail and email vacation responder to say something like, I'm not using my phone or email, whatever the case may be, for the month of August. If you need to contact me, please call my wife, right? And then what I'm going to do is not give them my wife's number. Why? Well, if you don't know how to contact my wife, you're probably not a close friend or a family member. And so whatever it is, it's unlikely to be something that I would consider an emergency. Does that make sense? Like, I might be proven wrong here, and I'll let you know in September, but I don't know. I feel like we make all sorts of excuses as to why we need to be, locked, handcuffed to our phone, and one of those is, well, what if there's an emergency? What if somebody needs me? And I think there's some validity to that, but maybe not as much as we wish there were. I think it's just an excuse we like to tell ourselves. But as I say, at the end of the day, people who know me well are going to know my wife and have her number, so that'll be fine. Now, you'll say, well, what are you going to do with your phone? So I'm not just to reiterate here, I'm not just getting rid of the internet, I'm getting rid of my phone. So I'm going to take my phone to a friend's house and tell him to lock it away and not to give it back until September 2nd. Oh my gosh, guys, as I say this, I'm freaking out. I'm trying to sound courageous, but I'm like, oh my gosh, can I really do this? By the way, I might not, in addition to my wife's phone, I might actually buy a cheap flip phone, like one of those $10-20 a month things, and give my number out to a handful of people, like dear old Noah and some other friends, you know? Like, I haven't decided on that yet. That's probably a good idea. So if I'm traveling on my own, my wife can get a hold of me if she needs to get a hold of me. Well, what about my computer, you might be asking? You know, you've probably got a couple of computers like most of us. What are you going to do with that, you know? Well, I'm going to have my wife change the password to my desktop and laptop so that even if I'm tempted to go online, I won't be able to. Again, self-knowledge is a good thing, right? Like, I could just say to you, well, I'm just going to choose not to go online. And I could say that to me, but I know myself. And I know at some point I'll be like, I just need to check one thing real quick, you know, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to have the passwords changed so I won't have access to it. And my wife's a good woman. She won't give it back to me, you know. And so you might say, well, that's terrific, Matt, but how are you going to get any work done? Well, most of my work consists of podcasts and vlogs, right? Podcasts like this one. I'm actually going to pre-record these this month in July and schedule them to release throughout the month of August. So you won't even know that I'm gone, right? So I run another podcast called Pints with Aquinas, which is like a geeky philosophy podcast. I run this podcast. I do vlogs with a group called Ascension Presents. I'm just going to pre-record these, and they're just going to go out live, you know? So again, that's how I'm going to get around that. Now, what about social media? I don't know if you know this or not. I actually got off social media about 2 months ago. I don't mean that I shut down all my accounts, as those of you who follow me know, but I actually pay somebody to run them for me. This is kind of like my first step to sort of break free of the internet. I have like 3 Twitter accounts, an Instagram account, 2 Facebook pages. So I actually paid somebody to do that. So that was kind of cool. I don't even actually have the passwords to those things. Again, I don't trust myself. So I said to the guy Kieran, his name is, awesome guy. I said, just here you go. You change the passwords. Well, what about travel, you might think? Because I do travel a lot for work throughout the year. But in the summer months, I try to take it easy. I usually try to take 1 speaking engagement a month. So next month in August, I only have 1 trip scheduled, and it's right here in Atlanta. So that'll be easy. So, okay, so you might be thinking, all right, so you're getting rid of all this stuff. You're going to have a lot of time on your hands. So what will you do with it? It's not a matter just to sort of take away the distractions. What are you going to replace it with? I think this is a really important question. You know, one of the things Noah has said in a previous episode is that when he quit porn and he was off of it for about, several months, he started to feel things again. And he realized that he hadn't actually felt much at all for like years, because he would always go to pornography to pacify it. I think to a lesser degree, we do this with social media, with email, with YouTube binging, like all that stuff, right? So one of the things that's going to be great getting off the internet is just feeling my feelings again, like being bored. Remember that? If you're over 25, do you remember what boredom was? That was kind of cool, hey? So, you know, I don't have a lot of plans, but I plan on, you know, waking up, hanging out with my wife and kids, praying, reading. I was actually, as I say, in Manhattan just yesterday, and I bought a handsome copy of The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. I've read Crime and Punishment at least once, and I tried reading The Brothers Karamazov about 6 years ago, but I found it too difficult. So I thought to myself, well, this would be a nice challenge if throughout August I'll just finish The Brothers Karamazov. I actually started reading like the first chapter yesterday. I'm like, okay, this isn't as difficult as I remembered. So, you know, I plan on doing that, you know. It's going to be just an interesting thing. Again, I don't mean to make this sound like I'm a hero or something. All I'm doing is getting off the bloody internet. But in a sense, it's a big deal because that's where most of us spend a lot of our time, right? All right, so let's wrap up here, because I really do think that if you're somebody who's struggling with pornography, that cutting down on your internet use and all the ways you distract yourself is a good thing, would be a good thing. All right? So here's a few things to say. Here's a few suggestions. Like you might be hearing me being like, "Well, that's great. You can take bloody the internet off of August." I can't do that. I got a job. I got this stuff, and it's too much anyway. And so here would be a few suggestions that I would offer to you to start to distance yourself from the internet. Because you might be listening to me and you're like, "Wow, poor Matt. He's got a real problem with the internet. Glad that's not me." But I actually think many people probably think that about themselves. You know, that they don't have a problem with the internet, but in fact they might just have a problem. So here would be a way to see if you do or not. What if every week you took 24 hours completely offline? You know, maybe Sunday. Sunday is completely internet and phone free. Or better still, if you have a 9-to-5 job, many of us who do have 9-to-5 jobs probably have a lot of time online where they can engage on social media and things like this, even if they shouldn't be, they might be doing that. What if from Friday night until Monday morning, you just turned the internet off? Like, what if you did that? And again, if you're one of these people who says, I don't have a problem with the internet like you do, Matt, okay, maybe you don't, but can you give it up for one day a week? Because if you can't, I don't believe you. Another thing you could do is use Covenant Eyes to block certain time-wasting websites. So Covenant Eyes does more than block porn, right? You can actually have it block particular sites. So I have Twitter blocked on my computer, and the reason for that is, even though I am no longer tweeting, I often want to go on to see what my friend is tweeting for me. So I'm like, I'm just going to block it. So if you waste, here would be an example. If you are somebody who wastes a lot of time on YouTube, imagine what it would look like if the only change you made to your internet use was to block video streaming sites like YouTube and, whatever else, like Vimeo or whatever. You'd probably become a lot more productive, You could do something like that. Like, that's not a big deal. Another thing you could do is make your smartphone a dumb phone. You could, by turning off distracting apps from your phone. Now, you might not know that you can do that, but if you have an iPhone, you can turn it into a dumb phone. And by the way, this is a great way to make sure you don't look at porn on your phone. Right? Because sometimes people complain that it's easy to get around Covenant Eyes, like on particular apps if you have an iPhone. Okay, delete those apps. Like, we've talked about this before. We've got to be serious about this stuff. So here's how you turn your iPhone into something of a dumb phone. Go to Settings, go to General, go to Restrictions. Okay, so click Settings, click General, click Restrictions. Now, when you click Restrictions, it's going to invite you to put in a password. Well, get somebody else to do that so you don't know the password. Something that they'll remember, of course. Now, when you go into Restrictions, you can restrict, say, your Safari, and you can also turn off the App Store. Then you go back into your phone, you delete all the apps that access the store, right? That access the internet. So you just delete them all, and that's pretty cool. Then it's like you don't have Instagram, you don't have Snapchat, you don't have Twitter, and so there's really nothing you can do on it. So that might be another idea. Anyway, I just wanted to share this with everybody. I hope that it's not thoroughly boring for you. I'm really excited about it, and I look forward to telling you more about it. As I say, I'm pre-recording a lot of these podcasts, so a lot of people use things isn't going to be stopping just because I'm stopping. All right. Be sure to check out Victory. Remember I mentioned that at the start, this fantastic app that we've created. Go to thevictoryapp.com. It is beautifully put together. It's completely free, and you're going to find it fascinating. And do me a favor, let me know what you think about it, would you? You can let me know by tweeting at me, and even though I won't get the tweet, my friend will, and he'll send me emails of what you've said, or just leave a YouTube comment under this particular podcast. Tell me what you think of it. It's a great app, and you're going to really love it. Look, as we wrap up here today, I want to invite you to do something awesome. I want to invite you to become part of the Love People Use Things campaign. Now, this actually takes a lot of work, like to have me and Noah do this. And me and Noah talk about plans from time to time on what we can do to make this better. And we've got plans, but we actually can't do it without your financial support. Because we don't live in a fantasy world, where you can just decide to do stuff and do it. Like, we have jobs, we have stuff we got to do. These things cost money. So I want to invite you to start supporting me and Noah, just for $10 a month. Like, that's $120 a year. All right. If you're getting stuff out of these podcasts, then I want to invite you to do that. The way you would do it is by going to patreon.com/lovepeople. All right. Give $10 a month, and here's what I'll give you for free. You'll get a free Love People Use Things t-shirt. You'll get a free Love People Use Things sticker. You'll get access to our live stream events when we begin doing them. That would be really cool. Also, apart from that, if you want to get some cool, coaching services from Noah Church, I don't do these myself, but Noah does, and he's really gifted at it. He's a great dude, and as I've often said, if I was a teenager, I would have loved to be able to have the freedom to call up Noah and have him coach me to be free of porn. That might be time for you to do that. It might be time to do it, just to give it a shot. Go to lovepeopleusethings.fm, and under Getting Help, click Private Coaching, and there you can learn how to get in touch with Noah, and you can chat with Noah one-on-one. And he's not going to lock you into some, 5-month plan. It's like, he'll probably just do like an initial meeting and you can decide if you want to continue after that. But I'd really recommend doing that. All right, I think that'll do for now. I hope you have a lovely week, and I look forward to us hearing from Noah next week. And, if you're the praying type, you might pray for me this August. I'm not nervous.